I bought a Cushman Truckster. These things were manufactured from 1952 to 2002. Then the company was bought, and they still make a similar version, but it no longer has the Cushman name on it. Anyway, I bought this for a song. It didn't really run, and I didn't know much about it, but I figured I couldn't lose too much.
Do a before on the Truckster before I start tearing everything out. I have removed that engine cover and the seat cushion. Cover up the engine. So it's a 2-cylinder OMC engine. I didn't know OMC made engines, but they made a heck of a lot of outdrives back in the 70s when inboard outboards were popular. Like every other boat had an OMC outdrive. The brakes do not work. Got to deal with that. I'd like to remove the gas tank and clean it, which probably requires lifting the bed, which you can't do without the engine running. Somebody has put a lift kit on it and put wheel adapters that push the wheels out and enable them to be bigger. I don't think coil springs are original. I think somebody did that. This is not original, and this is not original because most of them have like a little slope thing with the dashboard behind it, which I may put back. This would be nice for storage if nothing else. Air filter, muffler with a hole in it. 2 little exhaust pipes. I don't know how the exhaust attaches to the block. Carburetor. It's got 2 coils, but no distributor. So every time the engine turns over, both spark plugs spark, even though one of them is on the exhaust stroke, not the compression stroke. It's just the extra spark, which is kind of nice not having a distributor, but you waste those sparks. I don't know if there's a limited amount of sparks in the world, but it's kind of wasteful. This is fairly new, starter solenoid. This is a new electric fuel pump. Sometimes those are problematic when you hook up an electric fuel pump to a vehicle that used to have its own fuel pump, because the pressures can be weird, but we'll look into that. I've heard it definitely needs a battery. This battery would not take a charge, and I can't get it out without raising the bed, and I can't raise the bed without the engine running, so we'll have to work around that. When I heard him start it, even though the battery was really low, and that might have been the cause of everything, the starter motor sounded horrific. So I'm gonna pull the starter motor and check it out. The master cylinder for the brakes, unfortunately, is underneath the bottom, but I got my hoist. I can pick that thing up pretty good and high, safely. So yeah, interesting. On the back, has a lift kit. It has these blocks between the axle and the spring. It's a PTO, which is, I don't know what I'll ever use that for, but it does have a 2-speed rear end, so it has a high and low range, which is kind of nice. So this is the fuel tank. Looks okay from the outside. There's no telling what's on the inside. This is a fuel filter. Either somebody got on the inside and painted it black, or it's just dirty. Now underneath there's some weirdities. Now because they have a lift kit, the drive shaft has a severe angle. So I don't know if that's problematic or they got it working fine. I don't know if that's original or they changed the U-joints. I really don't know. But it has that disc right there. That disc is the parking brake, but there's no mechanical disc part. There's nothing grabbing it, so we'll have to look into that. It'd be kind of nice to have a parking brake. Although it's a manual transmission, so you can put it in gear. What else? This is the exhaust pipe, and the master cylinder for the brakes is right there. So we'll be digging into that pretty soon. And I'd like to steam it, pressure washer or something. It's kind of oily. Figure out if these oil leaks are bad enough to mess with or just kind of live with them. Yeah, interesting little contraption here. First thing I'm gonna do is take off a lot of parts and try to get to that starter motor. The little air filter is a Wix, and it's got a number, and it's almost impossible to read. I think I can read 2 of the numbers, but maybe that'll maybe we could find a replacement. So I'm looking at the starter motor, and it's bolted through here, and it looks like it should have 3 bolts. They look like 1/2-inch heads, but there's only 2, so it's kind of weird getting them from this angle, but I think I can get them and get some sockets.
So it feels pretty yellow, which to me is good because it was actually running on this stuff. I heard it run. Or it wasn't running well, but it was running. It would run on this junk. Put some fresh gas in there and clean the filter, change the filter. I just need a battery and a starter motor. May not even need a starter motor. I'm gonna have to check. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I don't think gasoline's supposed to be this color. So, man, it was a lot in this. Is my second bucket, and it still got gas in there. Killing the weeds.
So I took out a spark plug, and it looks like kind of what I was hoping. It's very dry, which means when the guy was trying to make the thing run, it was starving for gas and spitting and sputtering. So it looks pretty good. The other one's a lot harder to get to, but this one looks okay. It's an Auto Light 26. I wonder how old that is. I was told this battery was toast. It turned out not to be true. It's a good battery. So when I went to see this thing, the starter motor sounded horrible, but the battery was also very dead. So I took the starter motor out just to check it, and it sounds great. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it right back in there. So I did a good one here, buddy. I did a good one. This starter motor is bolted through this hole. You can see one bolt. I got the 2 top ones in, and there wasn't one in the bottom when I got it, but I'm gonna put one. And of course, trying to get that one in, I dropped it, and it went down in here in this fan housing, which probably is a no-no, because when the fan spins, when the fan spins, if it hits that bolt, it's going to disintegrate. This fan looks like cast aluminum. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that out, and then I dropped the whole freaking socket and flexible deal and extension. They all went down in there, and I could not get to them to save my life. So what I did was I stuck this sock up between the fins, so it's halfway sticking out into this cavity and halfway in the fins, and rotated the shaft with this little wrench, and actually pushed the socket thing where I could get to it with this wimpy ass magnet I got. It took 50 tries, but I got it out. But the bolt is stainless steel, so that's even more fun. So I had it a little while ago where I could see it. If I can get it where I can see it, I'm gonna try to super glue it onto a screwdriver and pull it out this ways instead of this ways. So yeah, I did it to myself, trying to make an improvement, trying to put 3 bolts instead of 2. I'm gonna get it. Look at what I got. Boy, this took a long time. I bet I've been messing with this for 2 hours for the last 2 days. But I still want to get the bolt in there, because right now the starter motor only has 2 bolts. But I think if I shove a rag down in the bottom, and then if I drop the bolt, it won't go around no man's. I got it. 3 bolts are in there, and they're all tight. And now the starter motor's tight. So I'm gonna put the wire back on it. I'm gonna put a new battery cable that'll reach out here. I want to change the battery, but I can't because I have to lift the bed, and I can't lift the bed unless the motor's running. So I'll set the battery right here. Just put some longer cables for right now. Okay, new battery hooked up, and I've got a short somewhere. I got a little bitty spark when I hook up the cable. Not a strong one, but a little bitty. I'm gonna have to figure that out because it'll certainly drain the battery. I got clean fuel in the tank, and I got a clean filter, and I've got the fuel hose off the carburetor. Let me get a cup. Somebody's put in a little electric fuel pump, so I should just be able to turn on the key. No, maybe that's not the key. That is the key. Okay, so why isn't this working? Something's not right. All right, yeah. So You gotta have the switch on. This must be the ignition switch, and that's the start switch. Pretty nasty stuff here. I'm glad I did that. I'm gonna hook it back up, and I don't know, maybe we can start it. Choke's on. Turn on the key and crank it. Lovely run with the choke on. That was very sweet. The motor sounds good. Of course, it doesn't run now. It was pumping fuel. Fuel was pouring out of the front of the carburetor, which means, to me, the float is not holding back the fuel from the electric pump. So it's probably corroded, probably dirty. Probably need to remove this carburetor and clean it, which I guess I can do. Looks pretty simple. Noticing that the gas pedal probably needs some love. It's kind of complicated. Pushing on the pedal, and that turns this thing. I got some tie wire involved with this, and it's not nearly opening up the throttle. It's not nearly opening up the throttle.
Turns out the gas pedal controls the governor, and the governor controls the throttle. So I guess that's good. I don't know. We'll look at that later.
A neighbor came over and started talking to me while I was underneath the Truckster. And when that happens, I forget all about filming. So I didn't film removing this thing, but wasn't much to it. There's two big bolts that hold it, and then you got to undo the two brake lines from here and here, and it just comes out. I'm not an expert on these, but I'm pretty sure this one's bad. For one thing, when we unscrewed the top with a big wrench, the thread stayed here, and the top just fell out like a little wine cork. So that's a bad sign. Another thing is when you look in the bore and it's solid rusted together, that's a bad sign. So ordered a new one. Came in the mail. Relatively reasonably priced. It was like 50 bucks. It's identical. I'm pretty sure that the people that made the Truckster borrowed parts from other vehicles, so they didn't have to, start completely from scratch and make every single part on it. Because I know the alternator is similar to an older car and blah, blah, blah. So I don't think they machined every part on here. But anyway, these are readily available. And it came in this box. And what you don't see in this box is a single piece of packing tape. It just came loose like this in the mail. And it got to me with the thing still in the box. Amazing. That'll never happen again. Now this little manifold did not come with the new one, so I'm gonna have to try to get it off and use it again. So it's just the two brake lines and I'm assuming a brake light sender, brake light switch. That was real easy to undo because there were no wires hooked up to it. And it probably won't be in the future. Totally uneventful. It came right out, and the nut came with the shaft. I don't quite understand this, but basically it's acting like a big bolt right now. So came with a copper washer. It wasn't leaking before, I don't think. So I'm gonna put it right back into the new cylinder. And look at that, the threads even match. I think it was shaped, forget the configuration. I forget which way this was pointing. Let me just leave it loose until I get it in there. So I didn't film taking the old one out, but the new one goes in right between these two plates, and the hole up there is where you get where you fill it with fluid. So it's just a matter of wiggling it in there. This is the activation rod, that's the brake pedal. This is from the brake pedal, that's what activates it. And all I'll have to do is turn the end around to get these two. I just have to turn the end around to get the two brake lines to line up. So I have to put the phone down and I'll put it in there. All right, I got it. Now I did have a hard time getting the fuel lines to thread back into that little manifold. So first I just tried to do it with the whole brake cylinder hanging out in midair. And then I gave up and I just took the manifold off, put the brake cylinder to the side, and I got them both started and tightened up, and then I put it back after I got the, well, I still had to do it with it hanging because you can't get this bolt out once it's in place, but I got it in there, got it loose, got it started, and bolted this down with the 2 bolts and tightened it up. So should be good on the bottom. I don't know about all the brake lines yet, we'll just have to see. So I took the front wheel off to check the brake cylinders on the wheels, and you know, they look okay. Can't really see on the inside, but I don't see like rust oozing out of them. So I'm gonna put the wheel back on and put it back down on the ground and see if I can't get the brakes to work with the cylinders as they are. So this is pretty surprising. I opened the top, fill it with fluid, pushed on the brake pedal, and oh, there's more bubbles. And the pedal went all the way down. And I did that 3 or 4 times, and every time some bubbles would come up and the fluid would go down. So I kept refilling it. And now, very few bubbles, and I got a hard pedal. I thought I would have to bleed it all the way through the individual wheel cylinders to get the air out. But apparently, I don't know, maybe there wasn't any air in there. I got a real hard pedal. So I'm gonna put the top on it and not do anything else until I get it running and be able to check them in the moving situation. Okay, my next project is to take the hood off, or whatever you want to call this piece of metal. I got wiring short. I got a short in the wiring, and most of the wires are under here. So I'm going to start by doing this. And I really don't quite understand what some of this stuff does. So I open it up, and when I put it back, I want to put it like a, I don't know, like a flared area to put the gauges where you can see them, because you can't see them down there by your knee. And I would love to be able to cut a hole where that safety sticker is and put in some sort of glove box for, you know, iPhones and stuff that there's absolutely nowhere to keep from bouncing off. So I'm gonna take all these bolts out and take this top off. Around here you can tell when somebody works at one of the many chemical refineries around here, or chemical plants, because they use stainless steel bolts on their home projects. 316 stainless with heavy nuts. They didn't get that at the hardware store. A quick glance at the electrical, and now I know that the short, wherever it is, it's not in the lights because they have no power. They've been cut. There's no power going to the fuse box, and the fuse box seems to feed the lights, so no power there. This switch powers the start switch, but the start switch has an off position, so I don't know, that's kind of redundant. And I got 2 hots. I don't know why. I'll have to trace them down, but I don't know why I can't put all of my wiring on this side and have a huge glove box on this side, and it'll be so much more user friendly when you're running up and down the trail. A place to put your cell phone and a little water bottle or something, because right now there is nothing. So okay, we're gonna do some, I'm gonna start cutting some wires and throwing some stuff away. So these 2 Cushman gauges look pretty robust. I got an ammeter and a fuel gauge. I don't know if they work. This light switch looks very much chemical plant stuff. I don't think that's Cushman. And it just has 1 movement, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 places for 6 wires. So yeah, I don't know what that's all about. So all I need to do, there's only 4 wires coming up here. I need to track them down and see if I can find a short somewhere. Can't be in this switch, I don't believe. And I haven't undone anything from the switch. I think I know what happened while the wires were cut. I think somebody was trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. And I think they reached their hand in here through the headlight hole and just cut all these wires, trying to get rid of this short. Shorts are a pain because you park it and the next time you want to start it, the battery's dead. So.
Well, I don't have the alternator correct yet, but it's running like a top. I want to go for a ride. I'm gonna look at the alternator one more time, see if I can't see what I'm doing wrong. And Man, look at it purr. Purr like a kitten. No smoke. Doesn't idle down well.
So when we started it up, it ran good, and then gas started pouring out of the carburetor. And that's could be caused by two different things. Gas is coming in here under pressure from that electric fuel pump. And what stops it is this little needle. And this needle is controlled by this little float. So the float floats up and pushes the needle closed. So two things are happening. One is there's just some junk in there. So the needle's not, it's just leaking past the needle because it's dirty. And two is just too much pressure for this float. Even though everything's working perfectly, the electric fuel pump is just pushing fuel past the ability of the float to lift. So the second thing is going to be a problem. The first one, hopefully I can clean it up right now. I lost this gasket, broke, so I'm going to have to do something unethical for temporary. But I got some carburetor cleaner. We're going to clean this baby up.
Goes. So to get to this point, I've cleaned the carburetor twice. It's still flooding out on me, so I got to deal with that. And the alternator is smoking, and typically when smoke comes out of an electric motor or an alternator, that's not good. So next video we'll deal with the alternator and the charging system and find that short. So thanks for watching.